The Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association presents Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standard-bred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Now here's your host, Roger Huston.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus. We've made the trip to Streetsboro, Ohio at the Sabra Farms to speak with trainer Kelly O'Donnell. Something unusual about the O'Donnell stable, his 2-year-olds made up almost entirely fear the dragons. Well, after this message, we'll sit down and talk with Kelly O'Donnell.
Athletes, they come in all shapes and sizes. They catch, they leap, they run. Some athletes even come with 4 legs and paws and hooves. When these beloved family members need care, remember the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center. Ohio State experts wrote the book on exceptional animal care and know how to get our best friends back on their feet. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. I'm going to sit down and have a few words with Kelly O'Donnell, trainer involved in harness racing for a number of years. And his mom and dad were involved in harness racing, and now, of course, he has his own stable of horses. And principally, the trainer for Bruce Trogdon, of Fear of the Dragon fame. Kelly, how did your association get started with Bruce Trogdon?
I trained a handful of horses for him years and years ago. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, I was running a little short on horses, so I called him up, and of course, Fear of the Dragon being a son of Dragon again, I said, it'd be pretty cool after I had Dragon again and he passed away, to train some of his offsprings. Mm-hmm. So that's how Bruce and I hooked up.
You mentioned Dragon again, 50 years of training horses or thereabouts. Dragon again is still probably your #1 choice.
Yeah, he was just a great horse. Had a great attitude, put 110% into every start, and raced till he was 5 or 6 years old. And he was just a thrill to have in the barn.
Most Ohio horsemen want to win the Little Brown Jug, and you had that opportunity many years ago with a horse by the name of P47. Yeah,
we sure did. That was quite a day. Mm-hmm. Of course, being from Ohio, and that horse there I bought as a yearling for $45,000. And he was an okay 2-year-old. I think he took a record of 51 or something and made like 110,000. He was a big chestnut horse, mm-hmm. a big red horse. And he gave it his all in the jug. The first heat, Dave Pallone drove him, and he was kind of a handful, and he kind of had to, he was locked in, and he had to kind of come with him real early, like the 3/8 pole. I think he was in a little bit of trouble. Yeah. So he was parked the whole last almost 3/4 of a mile and held on to win. And I said, oh boy. We had 3 horses in the jug. We had one in each division. Yeah. And we won another division with a son of Dragon again, mm-hmm. who paid like $80, $90, and he was owned by Ed Molnax, and he loved that.
Yeah. Well, that was the year that Pallone won all the divisions, and he had to choose which horse he was going to drive, and he chose to drive P47. Or won 2 of the divisions.
He won 2 of the 3 with my horses, and then Pelling had Rock and Roll Hanover in there, and Village Jolt, and one of those won the other division. Okay. And then we come back, and I said my horse has got to be exhausted after that first trip, and and they were interviewing Dave and said, Dave, who are you going to drive in the final? And he was kind of making a joke. He says, I think P47.
That was a big day because I remember your dad, tears in his eyes in the winner's circle.
Yeah, it was a great day, Roger. And actually, that was the last live race my dad ever attended.
Oh, really? You didn't know
The very
that?
last race he ever attended, and it was special to him because he's from Ohio, and he was second in the jug one year with a horse called, my mother named it, Skirt Lifter.
Oh. Speaking of your mother, she's still with us, what, 94 years old?
Just turned 94, April 11th. She lives in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and doing very good, thank God.
Good.
Yeah.
Tell her hi for me.
I will.
What I remember about, they had a horse named Leather Jacket. And if I remember correctly, Bruce Nichols was training him, wasn't he?
Yeah, I do believe Bruce did train her and drove her.
Yeah.
And my mom had a partner from Illinois named Marguerite Forrest, Marguerite and Sparky Forrest. They were real good friends with my mom and dad. And one day my mom and Marguerite were at the sale, and they said, well, we don't need to hang around these guys anymore. Let's go buy a horse. So the two of them went out and had somebody else look at it for them after they looked at it and said, what do you think? They bought this filly called Leather Jacket and started the Liberated stable.
And then Bruce had to wear a pink bow tie or something?
Yeah, they put a pink thing on top of his helmet and put a pink bow tie on him, and yeah, it was pretty fun.
Now, your relationship with Bruce Trogdon, and you've got all 2-year-olds this year, what, six by Fear the Dragon, but you've also got a Pennsylvania bred out of the first crop of Captain Crunch named Cinnamon Crisp, who is a half-sister to Fear the Dragon.
Yes, she is a Captain Crunch out of the dam of Fear the Dragon, and she's been training real well. We trained her in 2.8 before we left Florida, and we trained her in 2.8 today here on the half, and she's a great big filly, good gaited filly, and actually gets around this track pretty good for as big as she is. So yeah, we got high expectations for her.
Folks, you have no idea how big this filly is, because I noticed when you was out there on the track, your helmet is lower than her rear end.
Yeah, that's for sure. She is very big for a 2-year-old, well proportioned, and great gaited. So that's a combination for success, hopefully.
And in the last few years, you've developed a relationship with your second trainer, Howard Parker, who is quite well known. And it's nice to have a second trainer that's won over 5,100 races as a driver. And I see Howard even driving some of your horses this year at Miami Valley.
Yeah, Howard's a great guy. 3 winters ago, when I think I had 35 that year, mainly for Bruce. I had some 4 or 5 outside ones, most of them were Bruce's. And I called Howard up and I said, who are you working for this winter, Howard? He says, right now, nobody. I said, well, how would you like to help me out this winter? We're going to have about 30 or 35. And he says, yeah. He retired, you know, and he says, I need to stay busy, he said. So just a great guy, hard worker, I mean, and a great horseman. He's very handy with everything, knows all about everything, and just a great horseman. So this year when we shipped up from Florida, he drove up with me, and he said, you know, he says, I'll come up with you for a month and help you get started and get set up. And so he brought his colors with him. So I said, as long as you're here, you know these horses better than any drivers here. I said, you might as well drive them. So yeah, he's driven 15 or 20 so far.
I think May the 6th he had a win at Miami Valley, so
yeah,
you got a couple wins already for you.
Yeah, he won with a Fear the Dragon 3-year-old filly who equaled the world record as a 2-year-old last year in a sire stake at Northfield. 51-2 she paced last quarter, and 27-2 he drove her in their first start at Miami Valley this year.
You know, a lot of trainers that we've talked to on Freshman Focus this year say that the Fear the Dragons are a little cantankerous, could we say? Would you say that it's got some of them's got a kind of mind of their own?
Oh yeah, they definitely do. We've got one filly in there that she's as tough as they come. I mean, it takes a half an hour to get her crupper on, and she's a sister, three-quarter sister to a horse called Cruisin Dragon, who we raced 2 or 3 years ago, and then we sold him. He's still racing. He got a record at Pocono, I think, of 49-1. Meadowlands maybe 48-4, and she's a three-quarter sister to him. But she's real tough. I mean, she has an attitude, and she don't care.
I think in last week's Freshman Focus, Jeff Nysonger said he's had a couple Fear the Dragons. He says last year one broke my foot, and this year one of them broke my hand.
Oh, yeah.
So but he's still got a bunch of Fear of the Dragons again this year.
Yeah. And they're coming back as 3-year-olds. It looks like a lot better than they did. They had a tough year last year, a little bit, but the down by the seasides are just so good that it's hard to beat them. But we had good luck with the one filly last year, and hopefully we can continue it this year.
I don't see any trotters.
No, well, basically, because I'm training primarily for Bruce, and he has all pacer and broodmares.
Yeah.
So
you've had some success with trotters though in the past.
Yeah, we've had some. I had a horse called Big Rigs, was an Andover Hall horse. He made about 800,000. He stands stud in Ohio. Had a filly 8 or 10 years ago for Ed Molnex and Murray Brown, called Up Front Annika. She won the Goldsmith Maid. She made 700,000-800,000, and we've had, you know, racehorse trotters.
Is it easier to train trotters than pacers?
You know, they wear less equipment, but they can be the same. I mean, you can get a tough trotter or pacer that takes a little extra time and patience. So it really doesn't matter.
You've driven both of them in races. Do you have a preference, a pacer or a trotter to sit behind?
Well, not really, but a good gated, fluid gated trotter's the best. I mean, they're just so natural. Yeah, that makes it a lot of fun.
With the pacers, you might have a pretty good pacer, but you finish up the track 5th or something, going a mile maybe, and well, I think they had a maiden, if I remember correctly. First lifetime start at Miami Valley, 150-2 for a maiden.
And they had a maiden at Northfield a couple of weeks before that. Brian Brown had, I think, a Fear the Dragon. Colt went 51 flat at Northfield Park on a half in a maiden race. So it's so tough anymore. Like, you can't get high on a young horse till they start racing, because you just don't know.
Now, for the last few years, you've been here at Sabra Farms, and that's a pretty good track to get young ones ready on, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course we come from Spring Garden Ranch on a nice big clay track, so it's a big adjustment. But this track here at Sabra is built basically about like Delaware's track, the jug. Straightaways aren't quite as long, but the turns are nice and big and wide, which it gives you a little better chance of teaching them how to get around turns.
Well, we're about out of time for the sit-down with Kelly O'Donnell, and after this message, we'll return and take a look at the Fear the Dragons in the 2-year-old stable of Kelly O'Donnell.
Racing returns to El Dorado Scioto Downs May 11th. Catch the excitement all summer long in the new grandstand. Racing Tuesday through Saturday nights. Tuesday and Wednesday post time is 3:15. Thursday through Saturday first race post time is 5:50. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with the $150,000 Next Generation on July 1st. Horse players earn points with Caesars Rewards program. El Dorado Scioto Downs. Racing returns May 11th.
Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. Sugar Valley's lineup of stallions includes world champion Down by the Seaside, Lather Up, the fastest horse in harness racing history, Little Brown Jug champion Well Said, and the newest stallions to the Sugar Valley lineup, Adios champion Catch the Fire, and the son of Hambletonian champion Muscle Hill, Marseille. Sugar Valley Farm, the home of champions.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. Going to take a closer look at the 2-year-olds in training for Kelly O'Donnell. This is Cruisin Dragon, a 2-year-old filly by Fear the Dragon out of Cruise. The Fear the Dragon's a little difficult to break.
Not really. Actually, I'm real fortunate because Bruce has some Amish people that work for him. And before he sends all these babies to Florida, his man breaks them. He has a track right there on the farm. They get down to me and they're ready to go 3 miles. They're broke, hobbled. So for me, it's not tough.
So you don't know what kind of problems they had such. Sometimes the trainers say that they like to break them so that they know the horse from the get-go, but you'll take them already broke.
Yeah, and I know the Nelson is the fella's name there, and I've gone down there and jogged with him when he's breaking them. So this guy does an unbelievable job breaking colts.
Is it just luck that you've got so many fillies?
Well, Bruce's game is broodmares, so he generally sells the colts and keeps the fillies.
And the good ones that are out on the racetrack, he'll keep for broodmares.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Cruisin Dragon, how much, when you were at Spring Garden, what's the fastest you went down there?
This filly trained down in Florida about 2:11.
2:11. Now, was there much of an adjustment when you ship north and get on the half-mile track?
We give them a couple weeks, you know, to adjust. But like this morning, this filly went in 2:8 here on the half and had no problem.
Yeah.
She was real good.
So even though we might say they're kind of cantankerous, that's basically in the barn, isn't it? Out on the racetrack, they know what they're doing.
Some of them, and I mean, you can tell some of them are just as nice as can be, and you'll get 2 or 3 that are just can be really tough.
That's what you have to do.
Exactly.
You're the trainer.
Yeah.
Got to get them going right.
Yeah.
This is a 2-year-old filly, Cruisin Dragon. This is another 2-year-old filly, Seriously Fearless by Fear the Dragon, out of a mare, Serious Filly by Some Beach Somewhere. How do you deal with the pacers when you're starting to train them? Long hobbles, or are they tight, or how do you start them out?
I always start with a long hobble, and then as they show that they're too long and they need help, then we take them up.
Now, do they take to the hobbles pretty easy?
Yeah, they have. All of them have so far. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Have you ever had any free-legged pacers?
I've never raced a free-legged pacer that I trained. No. Yeah. I mean, we've had some that you could train down to 210 or 2.5, but to go to 52 or something, 152, they don't. I haven't had one do it.
Do your fillies basically do what you want them to do, or are they still at the stage that some of them going to do what they want to do?
We've got them pretty well situated now. I mean, starting out, some of them do whatever they want to do for a while, but we've got them pretty well broke, and they know the routine now because they've been doing it for about 5-6 months.
Now today you put the horses in race bikes.
Yeah.
Have they been in race bikes before today?
Yes, we did. We put them in race bikes the last fast training they had in Florida. So today was the second time most of them have been in bikes.
What about behind the starting gate?
That's one good thing about Spring Garden Ranch. They bring the starting gate out on the half-mile track where it's not interfering with all the training going on the mile track. And they bring it out middle of February to the middle of March, twice a week for like 4 or 5 hours a day. So we get plenty of practice behind the gate.
It is very important, that initial meeting of the starting gate and horses, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you better believe it, because if you got one that's afraid of it and they're a half a length or a length off it, that makes a difference.
And it will stay with them throughout their career sometimes.
Yeah. So we get a lot of practice behind the gate. They learn real well.
How much has she been so far?
This filly trained in 2.8 in Florida, and she trained 2.8 today, so she's right on schedule.
And you've been up here, what, 3-4 weeks?
Yeah, we got here April 18th.
Look for qualifiers in June?
Yeah, usually end of the first week of June, into the second week.
Now you're racing at Scioto, if you race at Northfield, where will you start your babies at?
Well, if I have a horse that needs a 5/8 mile track, I'll go to the Meadows or I'll qualify him at Scioto. Ones that can get around a half-mile track, we're only 20 minutes to Northfield, and we're 2.5 hours to Scioto and 2 hours to the Meadows.
So what you're telling me is the horse is going to tell you where you're going to qualify.
Right, exactly.
Okay. This is the 2-year-old filly, Seriously Fearless by Fear the Dragon out of Serious Filly. This is Glorious Dragon, another 2-year-old filly by Fear the Dragon out of the mare Rock for Glory, who is by Rock and Roll Hanover. You say this one has been a tough one to deal with.
She's been real tough, and even Nelson told me that when they sent him down. When he broke her, he said she's real tough. It takes about a half hour to get her crupper on. I mean,
really?
she swishes her tail and wants to hump up and kick at you. And then she's tough putting the hobbles on. When we started out, we used to have to set the back hobble on the ground and then let her wait till she stepped in it to pick it up to put it on her legs. That's how tough she is.
Yeah, I've never heard that story on a horse before. Will she ever get over that actions?
You know, we've had her since we've had her in the barn since early in November, and she hasn't changed a bit. So she's pretty tough, and I think she's planning on staying pretty tough.
Even when you get to the races, probably.
It's going to be, that's not going to be a fun job taking her to the races and trying to get her raced.
Has she showed signs or she's going to be a good filly, though, when it comes to racing?
Well, she acts like she's got speed and talent. Yes, she definitely does. Now if we can just get her under control and we can...
And if she's got speed and talent, you'll accept it.
Then you'll put up with it.
Yeah. This is Glorious Dragon by Fear the Dragon out of Rock for Glory. 2-year-old filly Sweet City Queen by Fear the Dragon out of Call Me Cowgirl by Artificial. And this is one of the few horses that you have that is not owned by Bruce Trogdon.
Right, exactly. A fellow by the name of Daniel Miller, he owns Riceland Acres, called me last fall and said, you go to Florida every winter, right? And he said, I seen you had a lot of luck with Fear the Dragons. He said, I've got a Fear the Dragon filly. Would you mind taking her with you? He said, because you've done pretty good with them. And I said, so I told him, I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And she's actually a nice tall filly. She's got a lot of ability, got a great attitude. She gets a little, since she's gotten here from Florida, she gets a little mixed up in the turns, but I think we'll be able to straighten her out a little bit.
And you say a little mixed up in the turns. Saw her make a little hop, skip, and a jump, so to speak, a couple times in the 1 mile on the upper turn and such. You think she'll get over it? I mean, how do you get them over that?
Well, we're going to play with her hobbles a little bit. I think we have room to take them up a little, and she's started the last couple of weeks getting on the right line a little bit, so we're going to go over and see what's bugging her. Something's pinching her a little bit, and we'll work on that. And because she's got plenty of ability, so I'm just hoping we can figure it out and get her to the races.
In the trip with the bike, I noticed the first time you was kind of sitting in the 2-hole, but then you put her on top, going down the backside to the 3/4, and she seemed pretty good coming around that final turn. But as soon as the mile was over, she's back to her old habit. Yeah,
she made a break after the mile was over, but like you say, she was real good on the front. So we just got a little tinkering to do yet, and hopefully we can get her.
This is why the owner pays the trainer to take care of situations like that.
Right, exactly, and hopefully we can work it out.
This is Sweet City Queen by Fear the Dragon out of Call Me Cowgirl. This is the 2-year-old gelding Wash the Dragon by Fear the Dragon out of a Wash by Some Beach Somewhere. Was he a gelding when you got him?
No, we castrated him this winter down in Florida.
Yeah, and what was the reason?
The main reason was he wasn't paying attention, just wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. He was worried about all the fillies in the barn.
Yeah.
So we castrated him just because he was kind of a lazy colt, and he's a really good gaited colt, and his attitude's much better now, so hopefully he's on his way.
And you want that good attitude. You don't want him doing that in the middle of a horse race.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, this one is one that you just jogged today. Did he train yesterday, or you just giving him
he trained Saturday. He's training back tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So
he'll go to a race bike tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, one of the two horses that you had out there jogging was doing a lot of trotting. Was this one? Or?
No, he had the hobbles on.
Oh, he had the hobbles on.
The next filly here, she was she mostly paces free-legged, but she might have been trotting somewhat today.
So this one's coming along pretty good for you.
Yeah, we trained him in I think 2:12 before we left Florida, so he's ready to go tomorrow, like 2:8, 2:9.
You put the race bike on him tomorrow?
Yeah, and he'll train with the other filly that jogged today.
This is Wash the Dragon by Fear the Dragon out of OHHA. This is the filly Fear My Candy by Fear the Dragon out of Candy's a Virgin by Always a Virgin. This is the one that was out there free-legged, did a lot of trotting out on the track. Yeah,
she's going to train tomorrow. Normally she paces free-legged, but Howard Payson Parker was jogging her today, so I think she was wanting to trot.
Yeah.
But she's a really good gaited filly. That's why we don't put her hobbles on her every day just to train. But she's a really nice filly.
They always told me, though, you take a pacer out there and without the hobbles and they trot, that means they're pretty sound.
Yeah, exactly. And they love it. You know, it's a little something different. You know, they're not doing the same thing every day. So we try to go with real low head checks, and they put their head down and trot, and they really like it.
Now, I know a lot of these freshman focus we do, the stalls are maybe a little lower than what you've got here. These seem very large stalls, and it gives the appearance that all these Fear the Dragons have got pretty good size to them.
Yeah, they do. And the training end of Sabra Farms this year was full. So they said I could come up to the main barn, which was the old Sabra Farms breeding shed and foaling barn. And some of these stalls are 16 by 16. A couple of them might be 16 by 20. So the horses are really happy in them. They got plenty of room.
And you want horses to be happy.
Oh, definitely. You definitely want them to be happy, yeah.
How's this one been?
She's really good gaited. This mare throws horses that are a little bit on the lazy side, but she's great gaited, and the more we go with her, the better she gets. So I'm not worried about her being lazy just because she's such a good gaited filly.
How much you been with her?
She trained in 2:12 before she left Florida, so she'll go 2:8 or 9 tomorrow.
Okay. This is Fear My Candy by Fear the Dragon out of Candy's a Virgin. This is the 2-year-old filly Fearless Ginger by Fear the Dragon out of Ginger Shark by Shady Shark Hanover. Another one looks like got some pretty good size.
Yeah, you know, she's really grown in the last 3-4 months. And Bruce loves the mare, Ginger Shark. He said she was a really good filly. I think she won a bunch of legs at Sire Stakes and maybe the final as a 2-year-old or maybe as a 3-year-old. Then something happened to her. She got hurt or something, but he really said the dam of this filly's a really nice mare.
Fearless Ginger got a size to her and everything like that. Is she real good out on the racetrack for you?
Yeah, she is. She's actually really good gaited, real clean gaited, doesn't wear any boots. Does everything right. Acts like she's got a lot of ability.
Have any of the Fear of the Dragons not been cantankerous?
Yeah, there's some.
Some.
There's some.
Does that get to the mare maybe something? Or how important is the mare when you're talking about horses?
Oh, the mare is very important.
Yeah.
You know, a good mare that throws really good foals, but there's been some world champion mares on the racetrack that's never thrown anything any good.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, so you don't know, but they both play a big role in it.
You hope it carries over, but there's no guarantee that it is.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. This is Fearless Ginger by Fear the Dragon out of Ginger Shark. Well, that wraps up another edition of Freshman Focus. I'd like to thank Kelly O'Donnell, his second trainer, Howard Payson Parker, for being with us today, and all the caretakers involved, making our job real easy. And the horses as well. Yes, this is a Fear of the Dragon, by the way. I'm not a bit scared. See you next week, same time, same location, for Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 11th with the next generation July 1st. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. Freshman Focus is a presentation of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.